Hello and welcome to the Ask the Expert podcast series, where we talk about all things involving healthcare, finances, free resources, and other important related topics. I'm David Moss, publisher of Senior Life Publication, a free public resource magazine in the Tampa Bay market.
And I'm Stephen Halstead with Oasis Senior Advisors. Before we get started, we've got Jim from the Veterans Funeral Care. However, I do want to thank Village Inn, 4th Street, St. Petersburg, for hosting us today. The holidays are almost here. If you haven't ordered your pies or those meals so you don't have to cook, we're here. Take their order. Give us a call. Jim, so good to see you. Thank you for being here. Good morning.
Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely.
And the breakfast was good.
Not too bad, huh?
And I actually get my pies from Village Inn.
I wish we could have pies in the morning, but I guess that's frowned upon. So the pies here are fantastic.
Better than my grandmother's.
Right.
Jim, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do with Veterans Funeral Care.
I'm Jim Rudolph, born and raised in the Tampa Bay, in St. Pete, Clearwater. Starkey Elementary, Madeira Beach Junior High, Dixie Hollins High, St. Pete College, although I didn't graduate there, went to school in Atlanta. So yes, I am the proud owner of the first funeral home in America that was launched and built specifically to help the veteran and retired military community. So I was raised in an Army home. If you work in the veteran world, you have to be able to speak veteran.
That's right.
So it's a lot bigger than I ever thought it would be. I've actually had people buy license rights, if you will, in about 30 states to do what it is we do. It's kind of hard to lose a little control of your baby, but we're in Clearwater, but we serve the entire Tampa Bay area.
Okay.
And all the people that work for me, we're either a veteran or the kid of a veteran or married to a veteran. I simply don't find people that tribally that do well with this if they don't have an emotional investment in it. So the memory of a grandfather during World War II or a dad in Vietnam is a principal motivator for the staff. All of us,
That's awesome.
Hero worship, everybody, your grandfather was in Europe in World War II. That's something to be proud of. So that's what we do.
I love how you say we speak veteran. I really picked up on that, which is so important. And having people come in and feel like very comfortable and like you get that. And so what's that one thing we kind of want to touch about on mostly specific? Why do they come to you specifically, Jim? On that, what's that one thing that they've always asked you about?
Well, there's a couple. Can I have a couple?
Yeah, absolutely.
Points on that? Number one is just what you said, speaking veteran. I think it was last year we did a funeral in Isla del Sol. Is that what it's called?
Isla del Sol. Mm-hmm.
Little church down there. And the pastor introduced, he said, Jim, you have something in common with my head usher. He spent 30 years in the Army. And I looked over there and he said, meet Sergeant so-and-so. And I walked over and shook his hand. I said, 30 years in the Army? He said, 33. I said, then you're not a sergeant. He said, no, I'm not. So the pastor looked with his eyes wide open. And I said, 33 years, I'm guessing Sergeant Major. He said, yes, I retired as Sergeant Major, which is the highest enlisted man, top 1% of everybody that's ever served. And the pastor was standing there, and I turned to the pastor and I said, it's all good because these guys never brag on themselves.
Right. And that's what I love about it.
I said a sergeant is an E5 and a sergeant major. It takes 30 years to get to E9, and that's the top. So when people call us or when people meet with us, and we know these what they think is insignificant things, but there is a huge difference between a sergeant and a command sergeant major. So that's what makes them go,
This is a different experience.
That's right. That's right.
So I was talking about just that one thing that when people walk through the door, when they come to you, what really is kind of the one thing that you really like want to emphasize and really want to kind of get across?
When seniors who are veterans or not veterans, because sometimes we're handling the cremation or ceremony, a spouse or a brother. We probably 25% of our business is not veterans, but it's consistent, and it always has been. When people start thinking about pre-planning, it's usually 75% of the time it's the wife in the marital partnership who cares about. They're concerned about kids not having, they don't want their kids to fly in from Toledo, Brooklyn, and find that dad has died and have to start from scratch. So it's usually the wife who forces the husband. The husband thinks, I got $100,000 in life insurance, that's enough. Well, no, it's not. The mom is the planner. They're the social fabric that holds us together. So typically the first thing we hear coming out of their mouth is they're here today because the wife is she wants the children to not have a terrible time when dad dies. Dad might not think he's a big deal, but to the kids and the wife, dad is a big deal. And so that's probably consistently they come to plan.
That's a good thing.
Yes.
Planning is always, I think I find in my business working with seniors that most people just are not ready when an emergency happens. And unfortunately, it takes that emergency, and what more of an emergency than someone passing away.
You're right. Every time when there's an accident, when there's a wreck, emergency, almost always those people aren't planned. The people that pass away in hospice or in a nursing home, they have much better chance that they've went through the planning process. And I can tell you from experience, the ones who have the shocking accidental death, no plans, have a much harder time than the ones who have, a file full of information, do this, do that. I want this, I don't want that. I want him to speak, but I don't want her to sing. And we can get that specific. That's the whole idea.
Jim, how important is it to make sure you pre-plan for these things? I mean, you must hear about all these different sad stories about not everybody getting these affairs in order until, when it's too late, of course, when it's happened. How can you encourage people to get involved a little bit more sooner in that process? To maybe they're getting a little bit older, but maybe there's a stigma attached to that. How can we get past that?
You're too young to be such a good question asker.
I do my best.
The fact of the matter is, we know, because when people come in, when they get through that original cup of coffee with us, we will hear things like, 3 weeks ago, a friend of ours had a heart attack and died. And
So there was some motivation there.
Yes. Their whole thing is, the wife will say, I drove out of the cemetery with Harry and I just made my mind up that I'm not going to go through that. So most of the time, what men will capitulate to is, okay, does it save money? Yes, it does.
Good point.
If your kids come in, if your brother comes in, if your attorney makes a funeral arrangement, they will spend more money. If you can, like my dad was a classic, when I die, throw me in a pine box and take me to Florida National Cemetery with my
We're good to go, right?
And frankly, I did everything he asked me to do except the pine box thing. So if Pop would have put it in his will, then I would have had to done it. But yes, so men think, oh, all right, I'll do it because it's, it'll save money. But the fact of the matter is, it's the fact that, really and truly, we have people that bring us their dress or their suit or their uniform, and we'll hear women say, I wouldn't be caught dead in that dress. Well, then you better put it, if you don't want to be buried in it, then you better put it in your pre-arrangements. And this is really it is, and it's not making funeral arrangements when you haven't planned. A lot of tissue. It's a sad day. It's a shock. We've got to call the kids, travel plans. And when we get the phone call at 2 a.m. and they say, we already have a file with you, blah, blah, blah. Well, now the dominoes begin to fall in the order that you want them to fall. And we're simply texting you or call or emailing and saying, pastor's checked in, the priest is good, military honors are here. Well, and it literally, it's that simple.
My father was a veteran and he passed away this past January. And
sorry to hear that.
Thank you. I had no idea what was in store. They knew he was a veteran. Of course, we had told him that. We had no idea what was in store. the service that came out of that. We didn't do anything. They did it all.
Right.
I think there's a big, not misconception, maybe a misunderstanding with families that have veterans in them about just exactly what they can get. And I think a lot of people are not aware of the funerals they can have that, honor their loved one that was a veteran. I think that's a huge disservice to our community. And so what you're doing, first of all, I didn't realize you guys were the only one in the country that was doing this.
I have a federal trademark on it, so they
No kidding.
haven't been able to copy it. Yes.
So we need more people to understand that, if you've got a veteran in the family, my father kept saying, I didn't do anything. Did you serve? Yes. Well, then you did something,
We hear it all the time.
Exactly. They're very humble people.
Mhm.
And so I think the family, it's important information for the family to know, because when my father's funeral happened and we had that gun salute and we had his, people from the Marines there. I mean, it was
Your dad was a Marine?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
It was very special to us. So thank you for what you're doing. And if we can get this information out there to people, that's the most important part.
Well, let's talk about what you said
Okay.
actually happens. I thought you were a good question answer. Now I think I like him more than you.
Oh, don't worry. I'll have a zinger after him. So, hey, we always have to outdo each one. So,
This happens to us a lot, that someone will buy cemetery property here in Hillsborough County, and then they'll come in to see our staff, come in to see Brenda, come in to see Patrick, and they will have their copies of what they bought at the cemetery. And we look, and here's a discharge, United States Marine Corps, and our people will say, well, didn't you guys want to use the National Cemetery? And the wife will say, we did, but we want to be buried together. So we went ahead and bought.
Misconception.
Right. And how did they get the misconception? Because the cemetery salesman told them,
that you can't, right, yeah, can't do
that's
that.
right. So fortunately, the state of Florida, there's a 30-day, you can tear it up, get your money back. And part of the fun of our life is to send people up to Florida National or over to Bay Pines, 2 graves, 2 burial vaults. The mom and dad share a double marker, the perpetual care opening and closing, it's all included. If you try to buy what the VA gives you at those 2 cemeteries locally, it'd be between $15,000 and $20,000. It's the number one biggest benefit after end of life benefit is completely free use of the National Cemetery for the veteran and the spouse. So that is the number one biggest. And what's sad is, and we've fixed this before, we've had people come to a funeral at Florida National. My dad is buried at Florida National. And when it's over, they'll come up to us and say, how is Harriet buried here? She wasn't a veteran. And we'll tell them, well, no, but her husband was. Well, when we bought cemetery property years ago, the salesman told us, and I said, ma'am, that's the problem. Salesman.
So the problem is, when you came out to it, you said salesman, and that's the problem. Yeah.
We've actually disinterred people at a local cemetery, taken them up to Florida National, buried them, so that the wife could be buried there too. And then we tell this lady, now go ahead and put that cemetery property up for sale. Put that money back in your pocket.
Back in your pocket. That's great.
So that's
a great
kind of
example.
The activist
Great.
me.
Great
But,
example.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
I think we need, that's what this is all about, is to get that information out there.
It really is. And that's kind of brings me to my next question. What are some really good points? Maybe just really couple, maybe 3 at the top of your head, Jim's, like when somebody comes in and asks you, or what kind of differentiates you to say, from all the other different kind of funeral. You said you also take other people in, not just veterans, but other. Can you kind of give us a little bit more information on that, or some other points?
We are a licensed funeral home, and we own a. This is incidentally, we've been talking about burial. This is the number 2 cremation market in North America. Only Orange County, California, cremates more people than we do in the Tampa Bay area. So we have our own crematory. It's just it's equipment that you need. And so when we talk about burial, the National Cemetery Administration doesn't care if you put caskets or urns in your grave. So you can, if we bury an urn, we don't need a vault. So that's a misconception. The Veterans Administration provides scatter at sea services for free. I mean, if I have a choice over paying a boat captain to paying a local guy to go out and toss them, because that's not a ceremony, or send them to Norfolk and have them go out on a deployed vessel. Well, our deployments are 3 to 6 months, and during that time period, they probably scatter, bury at sea, 20, 25 urns, but they do them individually with an individual service. So the Navy provides that. It's a veteran's benefit.
That's what they deserve.
Absolutely. So there's a lot. There's so much. It's kind of interesting that we all know what the budget crunch is in America. We all know about the 20 trillion. Let me tell you an account that's never, actuaries predict for the federal government how many veterans are going to die every year, and they set aside X amount of money because there's cash burial benefits. I actually got to give some testimony to a subcommittee before Senate about what can we do, because every year we have money left in this account. Why do you suppose that's happening, Mr. Rudolph? And I looked at those actuaries. They flew me to Atlanta to do this. And I said, because you're dependent upon funeral homes to tell people who are qualified for cash benefits, and most of them don't know. So it never gets brought up. And that's why it's not that your actuaries are doing a bad job.
They just don't know any better, right?
End of life people, funeral directors, cemeteries, if you're buried in a private cemetery, your dad was still entitled to a military marker, just like Arlington. And most people will get sold a private marker and they don't have. So there's actually the VA, the National Cemetery Administration, has always scratched their head. What have we got to do to communicate better? And they were posing that question to me. And I said, well, you have to be 19 for a minute. You're in World War II. You lived. You're being discharged today. Picture, paycheck, and you're going back to Kansas City. And they told you about all this stuff and college and what you're thinking about is Brenda, back home. You want to get married. So the length of time between when you served and when you died, they forget.
That's true.
That's a long time, obviously.
Long time. So that's what
you have to remind them.
We're really activist about. We want to see our customers get their benefits, and we help them fill the paperwork out to get every nickel that they're. Not all are entitled to cash, but many are. Whatever that is, we do it all.
Awesome.
Speaking of nickels, can you give us some maybe savings or different things? Because a lot of our viewers, a lot of our readers also want to know what can they save or what can they do, or how can you encourage them to make these plans? Or is there anything that you can incentivize them, I guess, to get to come to you?
Using Veterans Funeral Care, I mean, we pay attention to the what's going on locally. The charges that we would make would save you 30% over other top of the mind funeral homes in the Tampa Bay area. So I always tell people, if money is your only motivation, then simply do a Google search and compare Veterans Funeral Care with other top of the mind funeral homes. And so that's a savings there. We are just the fun of us making your funeral or cremation arrangements and including the benefits that you're entitled to naturally is going to lower the cost. And what I would say is, Stephen, I mean, I almost thought I saw a tear in your eye when you talked about your Marine Corps father, and that's a benefit you can't put value. You said
there's no price for that.
The kids are so tore up in a good way, not realizing. I love it, when the commander of the honor guard sometimes will read the DD 214, what these medals mean. And I've seen with my own eyes kids go like this because they didn't know
they had no idea
because
they don't talk about their heroism.
Yes. So it's we have a lot of feel good days where you go home and say, I didn't make a lot of money today, but we did a good thing.
We did a good job.
Helps the people out there.
That's awesome. Good information.
It's fantastic information.
Right. Well, thank you, Jim, for being here. Great information. How can people get a hold of you if they have questions?
We're veteransfuneralcare.com,
Easy enough.
727-524-9202. Ask for Jim or Brenda, and mention the Village Inn, and we'll never forget it. I thank you for letting me be part of your podcast.
Awesome.
Jim, it's my pleasure. All the information you gave us today was wonderful. So Thank you for being on.
And again, we do want to thank the Village Inn 4th Street here in St. Pete. They also have the one there on Bay Pines Boulevard across from the Veterans Hospital and Walshingham Road over in Largo. Order those pies. It's almost the holidays, guys.
Best pumpkin pie out there.
The pies are
You
amazing
haven't
here.
had mine. No,
It's
I'm just
amazing.
teasing. I'm just teasing. Thank you, guys.
So thank you, Jim, for joining us. And I want to thank Village Inn as well for hosting us again. And we're looking forward to providing you with more great content and information that matters to you the most. Also, if you'd like to have a free monthly publication mailed to you every month, please contact me. My name is David. I'm the publisher of Senior Life Publications. My phone number is 727-430-5180. Or you can also visit us on the web at seniorlifepublications.com. I hope you enjoy this video, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Have a good day.
Bye.